This is Fred Wall, the Visa Coach. Today's topic is how to get a fiance visa. I got a call today from Joanna, and she started by saying she had called around to 3 other consultants or attorneys and had asked questions about getting a fiance visa. She was very frustrated because she thought she was getting the runaround. Each company gave her conflicting and confusing answers. Well, I told her straight off, I can tell you all about fiancé visas, and I'll just tell you the straight story. The process doesn't change speaker to speaker. It's one process, and there is just a single set of rules and answers. Of course, there are some nuances, and I do like to discuss those when we go over tactics and strategies. At the end of the call, she said, "Thanks. You're the first one who really answered my questions, and I'm looking forward to working with her in the future." Now, I am really surprised that so-called experts either, don't know what they're talking about or can't explain a complicated process in simple enough terms to be understood. So today, I'm going to do my best to explain to you this complicated process, but as clearly and hopefully understandably as I can. I am Fred Wall, the Visa Coach, and I work for you to prepare and craft your applications to submit to U.S. immigration. And my work doesn't stop when the application is sent in. Instead, I continue personally working with you, providing service and guidance and preparing the additional forms and submissions needed. I work with you all the way through to the final happy end of your immigration journey. Now, my personal goal is to reunite you with your partner as smoothly and as quickly as possible. Okay, today, first, a dad joke. What does the introduction to a German cookbook say? And please, don't flame me. I am half German. First, capture a kitchen. So, for our purposes today, first, find a fiancé. Find someone who loves you and wants to marry you and have a life together with you. After you do that, but not before, I can help you bring him or her to the USA. So now, let's talk about how to get a fiancé visa to bring your fiancé to the USA. Now, your fiancé needs, permission from the US government to allow her or him to enter the USA. And this is called a K1 Fiance Visa. Now, to obtain the visa, it starts when we submit a fairly, complicated application package to Homeland Security here in the USA. The package identifies you and your fiancé with a required, stack of civil documents and evidence that a recent face-to-face meeting has taken place. Now, this is where a lot of couples who will get help and do this themselves get into trouble. The forms, look deceptively simple. They ask for name, rank, serial number. And this often leads to overconfidence. Couples who really don't understand what is really required, fill in the blanks, submit, and usually end up disappointed. Lack of experience and a minimal application often lead to the number one cause of visa denial, which is failure to convince the consular officer that your relationship is genuine, is bona fide. Now, what makes the current system so hard is that for most visas, U.S. immigration relies on a clear and simple test. If one applies for, say, a parent, brother, child, the simple proof of eligibility is a birth certificate or DNA test. And right away, the officer knows who is eligible and who is not. But for a fiancé visa, there is no simple test. The officer must basically take the couple's word for it, that they are bona fide, and that they plan a sincere life together in the USA. Now, sadly, the bad guys were ahead of you. They figured out that this was a chink in U.S. immigration's armor. An applicant could pretend to be in love, even trick his partner, and then lie to immigration about how solid the plans were for a married life in the USA. And then, well, quickly after arrival, get divorced and move on. The goal for the bad guys was, well, to get a golden ticket to a better lifestyle in the USA. So gold diggers, gigolos, con men, even terrorists have used fiancé visas as a backdoor into the USA. Now, these rotten apples have spoiled the barrel for honest folks. Reeling from being tricked so many times, finally in frustration, U.S. immigration has decided that since there is no simple test, that instead they will treat all applicants as guilty until proven innocent, and give everyone a hard time and a severe scrutiny before approving a fiancé visa. Now, the reason I mention preparing the application, which happens at the beginning of the process, and now at the same time I'm talking about what happens many months later at the end of the process, at the interview, is because the application we send in to Homeland Security at the start, well, ends up on the desk of the interviewing officer at the U.S. Embassy or consulate at the end. He or she reviews it just before calling your fiancé in for the interview. Imagine it like a time capsule. It's sealed when you ship it off, and eventually it's reopened on the big day. Now, what the officer finds inside sets the tone for the interview to follow. Now, this is how a lot of couples get in trouble. Because they are in love, they assume, well, no special effort to prove their situation is needed, and they submit a minimal application. Well, minimal bare bones applications might be enough to get your foot in the door. And it's usually enough to get your fiancé sitting opposite a consular officer for the interview. But sadly, well, just having your chance at bat, the chance to interview, is often not enough to win approval. It's not enough to demonstrate that your application is bona fide. Now, since the application, the minimum application, does not hold many clues as to what your situation is, well, the consular officer will be forced to ask, well, hard and fast questions to try to figure out what is going on. And this is where things can go wrong. If he is short of time, impatient, closed-minded, in a bad mood, or if your fiancé is not fast and fluent enough to provide convincing answers, well, the safest course for the officer, the safer course that does not risk his personal career or professional reputation, is to deny. After all, if the couple is really bona fide, well, they can always apply again. But if he allows himself to be tricked, well, that will look bad for him. Now, my point is that the original application submitted sets the tone for the interview, for good or bad. So we have here a golden opportunity to make sure things that go well by touching all the bases when we put together the original application. So at VisaCoach, I believe that this is critical to one's success, that the original application must include plenty of good quality evidences and information, all designed to convince the consular officer that he wants to say yes. Don't hope he will be friendly. Don't hope your fiancé will be extra charming. Instead, make sure the application anticipates everything the consular officer needs to make his decision easy and simple and in your favor. So when I work with a couple, and ideally, well, they start with me early, so while that we have time to take corrective actions if needed, I first discuss with them what have they been doing, and then I explain what the officer will think about their situation, and I advise them what, in the mind of the officer, what he would expect a bona fide couple to be like. Then I suggest what actions the couple should take that will help meet the reviewer's expectations. But doing the right thing is not good enough. Next, we need to document that the right thing is done. So I teach my clients ways to create evidences that show that the right thing was done. And I then review their evidences and choose the very best ones that tell a winning story. But having evidences that the right thing was done, well, that's not enough either. Last, we have to make sure that the officer has these right evidences on his desk. Now, that's what a bare-bones DIY or cheap form filing service misses. They do not lay on the officer's desk a full set of well-thought-out, well-selected, and properly presented persuasive evidences of a couple's bona fides. But that's exactly what VisaCoach does. We front-load every application with high-quality evidences specifically demonstrating that you have a bona fide relationship. So, long story short, to be successful, the original application should touch all the bases that set the tone for the interviewer to convince him he wants to say yes. Now, this package is mailed to USCIS. They're called the United States Customs and Immigration Service, to their offices in Dallas, Texas. Now, currently, USCIS is taking about 5 to 6 months to review and approve. And this includes a criminal background check conducted on you by the FBI. This is slower than in recent years, and it is due to the executive officer orders issued by President Trump for USCIS to conduct more rigorous reviews, which is so-called extreme vetting of all cases. When finished, USCIS then hands your case over to the U.S. State Department's National Visa Center, NVC, based in New Hampshire. Now, fiancé visa applications are held only briefly at NVC, usually just for a few weeks, just long enough for NVC to assign a new case number and forward your file via diplomatic pouch to the consulate assigned to your fiancé. And about the same time your case is on its way to the overseas consulate, well, I would update you on what the current procedures are going on at the consulate. And I would guide you and your fiancé on what needs to be done at your fiancé's country, how to schedule the interview, where to take the medical, what final fees are needed, and how to obtain any required official documents such as police clearances and certificates of singleness or no marriage. Here in the USA, I'll guide you as to what financial evidences that you, the American sponsor, must send your fiancé, as well as preparing the affidavit of support for your signature. Finally, in the run-up to the interview, I'll provide a detailed, personalized checklist on what all your fiancé should bring with him or her to the consulate on the day of the interview. Now, this is especially important because as forgetting to bring a required document can cause, well, weeks of delays, as even if a missing document is provided the next day, the consulate officers have already moved on to new cases. And they make it a very, well, low priority to reopen a case just to verify that it's now complete after a late submission. Now, 1 to 2 weeks before the interview, your fiancé must undergo a thorough medical exam and review of his or her vaccinations at a clinic appointed by the consulate. And then finally, your fiancé attends the interview at the U.S. consulate. Now, this is the big event. During the interview, the consular officer must be convinced your relationship is bona fide and not a sham for immigration purposes. And as previously mentioned, at the interview is where the high-quality VisaCoach front-loaded application typically, well, wins the day. The consular officer always reviews the case file before the interview starts. And we have crafted your application so that he'll find many good reasons why he should trust you and approve the visa. And this is even before he invites your fiancé to sit in front of his desk. We want him to have seen our carefully selected and presented evidences and be mentally prepared to say yes. Now, typically, the interview turns into a fast and friendly formality. Most of VisaCoach clients, well, they hear welcome to the USA, usually in about 3 to 4 minutes. Now, 1 to 2 weeks later, your fiance's passport with its visa are delivered, and your fiance has about 6 months to start the trip to join you in the USA. After arrival to the USA, you have 90 days to marry. Sorry, but even though you have persevered and gotten the fiancé visa, and your fiancé has come to the USA, and you have had your wedding and honeymoon, well, US immigration still not done with you. We overcame their skepticism and convinced them that your relationship was bona fide, so they issued the fiancé visa. But I'm afraid we have to do it all over again, and not once, but twice. After the wedding, your fiancé does not have to leave the country. She or he can remain with you as your spouse if you apply for U.S. immigration for permission for her or him to remain in the USA as a lawful permanent resident. This is called adjustment of status. Your new spouse adjusts her or his status from that of a temporary, 90-day fiancé visa visitor to a permanent resident. Now, at the end of the adjustment of status application process, your spouse gets what is known as the green card. But U.S. immigration is still cautious, still skeptical. So the green card that is granted is only conditional, meaning it is only good for 2 years. Then, before the 2 years is up, we apply once again. This time it's called application for removal of conditions on residence. And we apply, it is granted, and now your spouse gets a regular green card that does not have any time limitations. And a year later, your spouse, if your partner wants, she or he is eligible to apply for U.S. citizenship and can then travel using a U.S. passport. And don't worry, even though there are so many steps, VisaCoach is ready to help you through each and every one. From fiancé visa through to conditional green card, then unconditional green card, and finally to U.S. citizenship. This was Fred Wall, the VisaCoach. Now, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this channel. This helps others just like you find us. And then like or add your comments to this video. Go to VisaCoach.com and sign up for the VisaCoach monthly newsletter. And each month, it's full of tips and advice on marriage-based immigration. And it's free of charge. And when you sign up, you'll get 2 free ebooks I have written. 155 K1 Visa interview practice questions, and 5 things you must know before starting on your visa. Now, finally, when you are ready to get started, call me for your complimentary case evaluation and speak with me directly.
If you are considering hiring VisaCoach to personally guide you through your immigration adventure, join him for a complimentary case evaluation. He listens to you to learn the red flags and strengths of your case, your eligibility and goals. He suggests which visa is right for you, the best strategy to get it, and how soon your partner can join you. To learn more about VisaCoach's services and how he can help you, book your free case evaluation today.